She left her humble husband for the powerful CEO, never realizing the man she abandoned was the secret owner of that company.
The first time I learned that appearances could lie, I was 10 years old. An old mechanic in our neighborhood pointed at two men walking past his garage. One wore an expensive Italian suit. The other wore faded overalls stained with engine oil. "Never confuse clothes with character," the old man said. Sometimes the richest person in the room is the one nobody bothers to notice. I didn't understand those words then. Years later, I realized they described an entire life. Welcome to African Chronicles. If you enjoy stories about love, betrayal, family, and the unexpected ways life humbles us, consider subscribing. Every story here reminds us that what we see on the surface is rarely the whole truth. This one begins in the bustling city of Douala, where ambition moved faster than traffic, where skyscrapers overlooked crowded markets, and where one marriage quietly collapsed beneath the weight of assumptions. When employees at Asterion Global Holdings spoke about the company's owner, nobody knew what he looked like. Some imagined an elderly businessman living in Europe. Others insisted it was a wealthy royal family from the Gulf. The board of directors encouraged the mystery. The company had been built on discretion, not celebrity. Only 5 people in the entire corporation knew the truth, and none of them were allowed to speak. At exactly 7:15 every morning, Elias arrived at the headquarters carrying a faded backpack. Security guards greeted him casually. "Morning, brother." "Morning." He smiled politely and walked toward the service elevator. Everyone assumed he worked in maintenance. Some thought he repaired computers. Others guessed he handled deliveries. Nobody paid enough attention to ask. Elias preferred it that way. Simple gray shirts, old jeans, affordable sneakers, no expensive watch, no designer fragrance, no luxury car. He drove an aging pickup truck with faded paint and a cracked dashboard. It had belonged to his late grandfather. He refused to replace it. His wife, Nadia, hated that truck every single morning. "Elias," she sighed while fastening her earrings. "People judge you before you even get out." He smiled. "Maybe that's useful." "It isn't. It tells me who values appearances." She rolled her eyes. "That's easy to say when you're not trying to build a career." "I support your career." "I know. But sometimes—" She hesitated. "I wish my husband looked more successful." He laughed softly. "I didn't know success had a dress code." She didn't laugh. Nadia had joined Asterion Global Holdings 2 years earlier as an executive assistant. She was intelligent, organized, ambitious. She dreamed of becoming an operations director before 40. She admired powerful people, people who commanded rooms, people who inspired attention, people who wore confidence like expensive cologne. Lately, one person occupied nearly all her thoughts. Damien Kabila, regional chief executive, charismatic, elegant, always surrounded by important investors. Whenever Damien entered the office, conversations paused. Employees stood straighter. Managers hurried. He had that effect. One afternoon, Nadia watched Damien conclude a meeting worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He shook hands confidently. Everyone applauded. She whispered to herself, "That's what real success looks like." Across town, Elias was reviewing financial reports on 3 continents through encrypted servers inside a modest, private office that occupied an entire hidden floor beneath headquarters. Only biometric access could reach it. No company logos, no luxurious decorations, just screens, data, maps, growth projections. His assistant entered quietly. "The Nairobi acquisition has been finalized." "Excellent. And the Johannesburg expansion?" "Proceed." "The board would like another interview with Forbes." "No. They insist. They insisted last year. They say investors trust visible leadership." Elias closed the file. "I built this company to solve problems, not to become a celebrity." His assistant smiled. "I already knew your answer." Few people understood why Elias hid his identity. His grandfather had founded a small logistics business decades earlier. His father expanded it across Central Africa. After both men died unexpectedly, Elias inherited everything before turning 30. He also inherited their final advice: protect your peace. Wealth attracts people. Character keeps them. So he quietly restructured ownership through trusts and independent directors. Publicly, the owner disappeared. Privately, the empire flourished. Today, Asterion Global Holdings was worth over $30 billion. Yet, Elias still bought coffee from the street vendor outside headquarters every Friday. The vendor charged everyone the same. That made Elias smile. At home, things had changed. Dinner conversations became shorter. Silences became longer. Nadia often arrived late. Networking events, executive dinners, leadership workshops, business galas. Her phone buzzed constantly. One evening, Elias placed 2 plates on the dining table. She barely looked up. "I'm eating with Damien and some investors." "You forgot?" "We planned dinner." She sighed. "This is important." "So are we." She grabbed her purse. "You don't understand how business works." He watched her leave. The food slowly grew cold. Weeks passed. Their apartment became little more than a place where 2 exhausted people occasionally crossed paths. One Saturday morning, Elias suggested, "Let's visit your mother." "I'm busy." "Sunday?" "I'm busy." "What are you busy with?" She answered without hesitation, "My future." Those words lingered long after she walked away. At headquarters, rumors spread. Employees whispered about Nadia. "She's becoming very close to the CEO. They're always together. They travel together. They stay late. I heard she'll become executive director soon." Most people assumed her promotion resulted from talent. Others weren't so sure. Nadia ignored them. She liked being seen beside powerful people. It made her feel closer to the life she wanted. One evening, Damien invited her onto the rooftop terrace after an executive dinner. The city lights sparkled beneath them. "You've impressed everyone." "Thank you." "You deserve bigger opportunities." She smiled. "I've worked hard." "I know." He paused. "I've also noticed you seem unhappy." She looked away. "My marriage isn't exactly inspiring." "Does your husband support your ambitions?" "He says he does." "But?" "He has no ambition of his own." Damien nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes 2 people simply outgrow each other." Those words echoed inside her for days. Meanwhile, Elias received a report from the company's internal ethics department. Nothing unusual, except one detail. Senior executives had begun bypassing procurement rules. Someone was approving luxury expenses without authorization. The approvals all originated from Damien's office. Elias frowned. "Start a quiet audit." "No announcements." "No accusations." "I want facts." The investigation began silently. No one suspected anything, especially not Damien or Nadia. A month later, Nadia returned home carrying expensive flowers. "They're beautiful," Elias said. "They're from the office." "From whom?" She hesitated. "The executive team." He noticed the attached card. Only one signature appeared. "Damien." Elias said nothing, not because he was unaware, because he believed trust deserved the chance to survive before suspicion destroyed it. But trust has limits. 3 nights later, Elias waited alone in their apartment until midnight. At 12:47 a.m., Nadia finally came home. "I called." "My phone died." "You could have borrowed someone's." I said, "I'm sorry." "Were you with Damien?" Her silence answered before her words did. "He needed me after the investor meeting." "Until midnight?" She stared at him. "You wouldn't understand." "I'm trying to." "No, you really wouldn't." She walked toward the bedroom. "Elias." "I've changed." "You haven't." "That's the problem." He remained standing in the dark living room long after the bedroom door closed. For the first time since their wedding, he wondered whether love alone could survive when respect had already left. Across the city, another report landed on Elias's private desk. The auditors had uncovered something far more disturbing than financial misconduct. Damien wasn't just violating company policy. He had secretly transferred millions through shell contracts. And someone inside his inner circle had unknowingly helped authorize the paperwork. The signature appearing on every document belonged to one person, Nadia. Elias stared at the files in disbelief. Was his wife merely trusting the wrong man? Or had she become part of something much bigger than either of them realized? The name on every approval form was unmistakable. Nadia Elias Mbeki. Elias leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. He knew his wife. She was ambitious, impatient, sometimes blinded by appearances. But dishonest? He couldn't believe it. His chief legal officer, Grace Naji, broke the silence. We've traced over $18 million in fraudulent contracts. Elias looked up. And? Every payment was approved from Damien Kabila's office. The signatures? They're Nadia's. Grace slid another folder across the desk. But something doesn't fit. What? Every authorization was submitted after office hours. You think they're forged? I think someone manipulated the approval system. Elias closed the folder. Don't arrest anyone. Grace looked surprised. Not yet? No. I want the truth. That evening, Elias drove home in his battered pickup. The apartment lights were off. Nadia hadn't returned. He reheated yesterday's soup and ate alone. The silence felt heavier than hunger. Around 10 o'clock, the front door opened. She stepped inside wearing another elegant evening dress. Her perfume filled the room before she spoke. You waited? I always do. She avoided his eyes. I'm exhausted. So am I. She walked toward the bedroom. Elias, can we not fight tonight? I'm not trying to fight. Then what? I just want my wife back. For a brief second, something softened in her expression. Then her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen. Damien. She smiled before she could stop herself. Elias noticed. She quickly locked the phone. I have to take this. She stepped onto the balcony. The conversation lasted nearly 15 minutes. When she came back inside, Elias simply asked, Are you happy? She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while. His heart sank. You've already decided. She nodded slowly. I think we both deserve different lives. 3 days later, divorce papers arrived. No shouting, no dramatic confrontation. Just signatures. Cold. Precise. Like two strangers closing a business deal. Friends tried calling Elias. He ignored them. His board members urged him to take a vacation. He declined. Instead, he buried himself in work. Across headquarters, whispers spread. Nadia left her husband. I heard she's seeing Damien. They're practically inseparable now. Damien never confirmed the rumors. He didn't need to. He arrived with Nadia at executive dinners, corporate events, charity galas. She had become part of his public image, exactly as she'd once imagined. People admired them. She finally felt seen. But admiration has a strange habit. It disappears the moment power does. Meanwhile, the audit continued. Grace entered Elias's office carrying fresh evidence. We've recovered deleted emails. Elias looked up. What do they show? Damien created fake supplier companies. And Nadia? She never received the invoices. What? He used her digital approval credentials. Elias frowned. Without her knowledge? Grace nodded. He convinced her the documents were routine executive authorizations. So she trusted him. Completely. Elias remained silent. His marriage had collapsed because of assumptions. Now, another assumption threatened to destroy someone's career forever. The board scheduled its quarterly executive meeting. Every regional director attended. Investors joined virtually from London, Dubai, Nairobi, and Toronto. Damien stood confidently at the front. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been our strongest financial year. Applause filled the room. Halfway through his presentation, the conference doors opened. Grace walked in. Behind her came 2 forensic auditors, then 6 members of the board. Finally, a man almost nobody recognized, wearing simple trousers, gray shirt, old shoes. Employees exchanged confused looks. The maintenance guy? Why was he entering the boardroom? Damien frowned. This meeting is restricted. Grace smiled politely. It is. She turned toward Elias. The floor is yours. The room fell silent. One board member stood. Ladies and gentlemen, he cleared his throat. It is my privilege to introduce the founder's grandson. Chairman of the board, and sole beneficial owner of Asterion Global Holdings. Elias and Becky. Silence. Absolute silence. Faces froze. Coffee cups stopped halfway to mouths. Someone actually gasped. Nadia stared as though the world had tilted beneath her feet. "No," she whispered. Damien's confident smile disappeared. Elias walked calmly toward the head chair, the chair Damien had secretly dreamed of occupying. Without raising his voice, Elias spoke. "Good morning." Nobody answered. "I believe Mr. Kabila was presenting our financial performance." Damien swallowed hard. You own everything?" Elias nodded once. "For 11 years." Nadia couldn't breathe. Images flashed through her mind. The old pickup, the faded shirts, the tiny apartment, his refusal to show off, the mechanic's tools in the garage, the quiet evenings, the simple meals. Every memory suddenly looked different. She hadn't married an unambitious man. She had married a man who never needed to impress anyone. Grace activated the projector. One document after another filled the screen. Shell companies, forged contracts, offshore accounts, email records, hidden transfers. Every lie Damien had buried surfaced before the entire board. His face turned pale. "This is a misunderstanding." "It isn't," Grace replied. "You manipulated procurement." "No." "You forged executive approvals." "No." "You abused company assets." "No." "The evidence says otherwise." Security officers quietly entered the room. Damien looked desperately toward Nadia. "Tell them." She stared at him. "You said those approvals were routine." "They were." "You told me the chairman had already reviewed everything." He said nothing. "You used my credentials." Still nothing. Tears formed in her eyes. "You used me." Security escorted Damien out of the building. No dramatic resistance. No shouting. Just a broken man realizing his career had ended. Employees watched through glass walls. Within hours, the news spread across every office. The mysterious owner had finally revealed himself, and the celebrated executive had fallen. That evening, Nadia knocked on Elias's office door. He looked up. "You may come in." She stepped inside slowly. There were no expensive dresses now. No designer jewelry. Just a simple blouse. For several moments, neither spoke. Finally, she whispered, "You knew. I discovered the truth during the audit. You knew I wasn't stealing." "Yes." She began crying. "I ruined everything anyway." He didn't interrupt. "I judged you because of your clothes." Silence. "I measured you by your salary." Silence again. "I thought confidence came from expensive suits." She wiped her eyes. "I never really saw you." Elias looked through the office window at the city below. "When my grandfather left me this company," he smiled faintly, "he warned me that wealth attracts attention." He turned toward her. But he forgot to mention something. "What?" "It also reveals character." Weeks passed. Nadia resigned from Asterion Global Holdings. Not because anyone forced her. Because she no longer trusted herself to separate ambition from integrity. She began volunteering with a nonprofit that trained young women entering the workforce. Whenever someone asked about success, she answered differently now. Choose people who respect you when nobody is watching. Elias never remarried quickly. He focused on rebuilding the company after Damien's fraud. He also created a new policy. Every executive, from interns to regional directors, would spend 1 week each year working anonymously in frontline roles across the company. Reception, warehouses, customer service, maintenance, drivers, security. He wanted every leader to remember that dignity never depends on job titles. Nearly a year later, Nadia visited one of the company's public community projects. She found Elias speaking with warehouse workers over lunch, still wearing a plain shirt, still laughing easily. Nothing about him had changed, except now everyone knew who he was. She walked over. "I came to say thank you." "For what?" "For not letting me carry a crime I didn't commit." He nodded. "You made enough mistakes without adding one that wasn't yours." She smiled sadly. "I don't expect another chance." "I know. I only hope one day you'll remember me without anger." Elias looked at the children playing nearby before answering. I don't remember you with anger. She looked surprised. I remember you as someone who confused status with worth. He paused. And I hope you've learned they're not the same. She nodded, tears filling her eyes once more. I have. They parted without promises, without romance, without dramatic reconciliation. Some relationships are restored. Others simply leave behind lessons that shape the people we become. As Elias watched the children laugh, he remembered his grandfather's words from years ago. Protect your peace. Wealth attracts people. Character keeps them. For the first time since his marriage ended, those words no longer felt like a warning. They felt like freedom. Thank you for spending this time with African Chronicles. If this story resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy powerful stories about family, love, betrayal, redemption, and the choices that define us, don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories inspired by life.